background to understand what male privilege means. And while I was trying to put up my notes together, I tried as much as possible to use something practical, to use something relatable, something like a personal, something like bringing up a real life man to sort of show what male privilege means. So I looked at the typical life of a man called Bran, and I said on a normal day, there are a couple of things Bran might not be used to. There are a couple of things Bran might not be accustomed to. There are things he mustn't have even heard all through his life. For an example, I'm sure that Bran doesn't know how it feels to be sexually abused at work or sexually harassed at work. Bran doesn't know, Bran doesn't know what it means to be called the slut if he sleeps around with women, right? And Bran possibly doesn't know that if he has a bad day or has mood swing, nobody's going to blame it on his gender. Nobody's going to say that he has mood swing because he's a man. If peradventure Bran rises to a top position at work, nobody's going to assume that Bran slept his way through to the top. And finally, Bran can confidently speak in meetings, and not be called aggressive and not be called overposing. You understand, right? So all of those things I had mentioned, they are the replica of what an average woman goes through, every now and then. A wise man once said that men shouldn't be told to give women a seat at the table because no one owns the table. The table belongs to everyone. The wise man is Solomon Ayodele. It's important for us to understand that the issue with this conversation around male privileges has been an underpinning cultural conversation that has become a part of our lives. It has become a norm, right? To push against what I'm expected to talk to. I mean, one of the things that the organizers would expect me to talk about is how we can use male privileges to the advantages of women, how we can, gather men and, some of the things they call privileges, we can use them in, pushing for gender equality and all of that. But before we can even go deep into this conversation, it's important we understand some of the effect of, this male privilege thing. From at least the first and the major one that I see as an effect of this male privilege pandemic, let me use that word, is misplaced attention. A lot of time, the kind of attention men get, right, are misplaced. Can you still hear me, Favor? Just to be sure, you guys are you can still hear me, right? Oh, awesome. Right. So a lot of the attention men get are sort of misplaced. So when I say misplaced attention, there is an unhealthy comparison between the men folks and the women folks. And even in this same vein, there is a problem with the fact that men are used as a yardstick for things. For example, they will say what a man can do, a woman can do better. There's a problem with that idiomatic expression. A lot of the things we call proverbs in this part of the world are just an expression of senseless insecurities of men, right? So a lot of time, men has been used as a yardstick for things. They have been used as a yardstick for progress. They have been used as a yardstick for, for development, right? A wise man once said again that boys should be taught that leadership and rising to the top is not determined by their gender or genital. The wise man is the one speaking currently, right? So a lot of time, we try as much as possible to use men as a yardstick. Hence, men begin to get some attention they shouldn't get, right? I'm still sort of going to break that down a bit more. The second point is there is an issue with an abnormal norm. There's an issue with an abnormal norm. So when I say an abnormal norm, right, it starts from the place of raising boys. This issue around male privilege starts from raising boys. Let me give you a very practical example. If a parent or a mother is trying to raise a son and a daughter, if that mother sees her son in the kitchen, the mother would rather say that, what are you doing in the kitchen? No, you shouldn't stay in the kitchen. Go and play with your friends. Go and have fun. Go and play outside. It is the job of the women to stay in the kitchen and clean the house and all of that, right? All of these cultural norms that we have pushed has become an abnormal norm, right? I usually tell my folks, I'll tell them, whoever said boys cannot play with dolls, whoever said that boys cannot stay in the kitchen, whoever said that boys cannot like pink, let the person produce the rule book and let us burn it off. A lot of the things we have called our mindset, our cultural processes, are things that has become something we built from a place of, someone just thought about it and said, no, now men should not wear pink. Men should not do this, men should not do that, right? So this norm has become an abnormal norm. They have become an issue in the sense that it has sort of given men some sort of gender boxing, right? It puts them in a place where they feel that they are superhuman, where they feel that they are beyond what a normal human should be. That is why the way their perception about women is a bit misplaced, in the sense that they begin to see women as subhumans. Right. So for me, that's the second point. And the third point, as an effect of this male privilege thing, is some sort of sense of entitlement. Right. I know we have people from different races and religious backgrounds on the call, but as a Christian, people usually make the mistake by saying that a man is the head of the woman. It is very wrong, and it is very wrong, right? The man is not the head of the woman. From my own religion, it is the husband who is the head of the wife, right? So a lot of time, there's this sense of entitlement. Men feel they have a right over women. They feel they have a proprietary right over leadership, right? I believe the reason why Africa is where we are today is because we have not given women the opportunity to take up positions they deserve. A lot of time, women are denied the opportunity to add value, to create some sense of impact in our society, because we feel that, leadership is synonymous to men. We believe that being the head is synonymous to men. We believe that being the leader is synonymous to men. So it has sort of created some sense of entitlement. Men begin to feel like, this is my space, I own it. And it also drives us down to the place where men begin to feel that they own the body of women, right? When I begin to show you a bit more about some of the works we have done at Boys Quarters Africa, I'm going to show you some of the feedbacks men have shared about what they feel about women. So there's some sense of entitlement men have, about women. And the final point around the effect of this male privilege thing is an endemic sexism, endemic sexism, showing that the way men see women is so misplaced. It's so I'm careful of my choice of words. If you hear the way the things men say about women, right? I'm going to break it down a bit under the prevailing impacts. So 3 months ago, my team at Boys Quarters Africa, we started a project called Project Sabi on gender-based violence. So the thought around it was to say that because we have realized that there are a lot of social media warriors talking about gender-based violence, the biases against women and girls, that we need to go out to have a community engagement, engage boys and men, tell them that they don't have a right over women's body, talk about rape culture and all of that, right? I will share with you a breakdown of the top 6 feedbacks. So we spoke to about 47 families in all. We spoke to over 172 men, right? And over 75 boys. I'm just quickly going to run you through the top feedback, that men gave, right, about rape, and to show you the problem we have in our society. The first feedback which came up top is men began to ask questions that, do you know what it means to be honey? Like, do you know what it means? Before I even go into that, right? The volunteers we took for this gender-based violence project called Project Sabi, we had about 12 ladies and about 4 guys. While those ladies were talking to them, these men kept throwing some abusive words at them. See her breast now. Come marry me now. See your nyach now. These were the feedbacks we were getting from men who went to talk to about gender-based violence. So to break down some of the things, some of the top thoughts, some of the thought feedbacks we got from those men, 50% of them kept asking what it means. That, do we know what it means to be honey? That, do we really know what it means to be honey? That when a man is honey, that a man is uncontrollable. That when you are honey, when you have that sexual urge, you're not able to control it. Another set of men said we should learn how to caution ladies. That we should teach them how to dress properly. That the problem is with women. That the way they dress is the problem. These were feedbacks from grown-up men. Some of these men have kids that are girls. One of the thought feedbacks we also got from these men is men are made to be the head over women. That men are naturally created to be, I mean, no snide that my Igbo brothers. But a bulk of this feedback came from my Igbo brothers. They said, do you know what it means that men are the head? That women should be submissive. That if they want their body, they should. This is a real life data, real life statistics. I mean, this is not like I'm coming up with some sort of, we had this project 3 months ago, around Oyewole, Yalopaja, Agege local governments. Do you understand what I'm saying? I mean, so imagine men saying that they are the natural head over women. Another feedback that came is, the question is, how was she dressing? So when we began to engage them about rape, when we began to give them statistics about women that were raped and eventually murdered, some of the questions that kept coming back at us is, how were these women dressing? And it boils down to the fact that what is the business of a man with the way a woman was dressing, right? Another major feedback that came was that a lot of the accusations, a lot of the rape accusations against men are false. That a lot of the accusations against men are false, right? The truth is, no doubt there's been false accusations. But I would usually tell my friend, or the way I would usually say, a wise man once said that 99.9% of the biases against women and girls are perpetrated by men. The truth is, before you would find 2 false accusations, you would have found over 100 real and true accusations. If you call 5 ladies into a room, it will be rare for you to find 1 out of that 10 that hasn't been sexually abused before, either through the words. I mean, so I was telling my friends that in the wake of the Project Sabi that we did, a little friend of mine, a younger friend of mine, told me that while we were growing up, that someone who was supposed to be a family member, who was supposed to be a big brother, sexually abused her in church at a night vigil. Sexually abused her in church at a night vigil. So you will really find 1 out of 10 ladies, if you call them into a room, that they've not been sexually abused one way or the other. Because men don't understand what it means to walk through Yaba Market and not be spoken words at. If a young lady goes to Yaba Market today, you will hear men call her, fine girl, come now. I like your breast and I like your yash now. But men don't go through these things. They don't understand the things. The only way men can understand the things women go through is if they come into their body, which is not possible. All right. So some of the major things that came out, I mean, one of the last things that came out, out of our feedback from Project Sabi was that men kept saying that Shebi, men and boys are raped too. So when we tell them, this person was raped, Uwa was raped in Benin, Barakas was raped and murdered in Badon, the next feedback men give is that Shebi, they rape women, they rape men and boys too. Right? I mean, I have never seen such senseless feedback from human beings God created. So a lot of time I tell people I'm not a men advocate. That's the truth. I have a problem trying to understand that men can be fixed. I believe boys can be built. I'm a boy child advocate. And I believe that the problem we have, the solution will not come from a top to bottom. It is a bottom top solution. And the reason why we will not come back to this circle again, and in the next 10, 15 years, if our children will not have a webinar to talk about rape culture, is if we can fix our boys, if we can build our boys, right? So I'll just quickly like to move on. I mean, for me, it's a principle. I don't like to talk too much about problems. Let us go to the solution. What is the solution? So Alima told me that let us talk about how we can use male privileges to the advantages of women. And I came up with 3 solutions, right? 3 solutions. Number 1, we need to make use of our male privilege to fix men. That's the truth. That's the number 1 solution, right? Men must understand that their power must be used to fix themselves, not to fix other people. The problem we are facing is not a woman problem. We have a problem because there's a problem with men, right? I have a big sister who currently sort of have an issue today. And the truth is, I was telling my friend, my very close friend, that I wrote an article that men are actually scum. Because I realized that, I mean, this is supposed to be a very confidential story. I realized that this man made a life-defining decision about a woman. And this man never opened up to this woman until this woman went to find out herself. Very life-defining problem. A life-defining decision. You made the decision for the woman while she was on an hospital bed, and you never told the woman. After about 5 years, the woman went to find out herself. So I feel that the first point of call is not to use our male privilege to the advantages of women. We must use our male privilege to solve the problem we have with men. Men have a basic, fundamental, and overarching problem, right? I know a lot of men don't like to hear this because of our ego. And I'm saying I'm not a men advocate, so I'm not even trying to massage the ego of men. We need to look at ourselves and call ourselves to action. I would always like to use, the church as a very good example as a Christian. Before you can find a men program in the church, you will have found 16 women program. You will see them calling sisters for different events. Sisters prayer meeting, sisters preparation for marriage, sisters how to be a wife, how to be a good mother. But you will really find churches and pastors calling men together to talk about problems, even in our mosque. Talking about problems, the fundamental problems about men, about our emotions, about our toxic masculinities, about chauvinism, about the problem we have with expressing our emotions, about our mental health. So I believe the first point of call is to use our male privilege to solve our male problem. There is a basic and fundamental male crisis across the world. And the problem we have is not with women. The problem we have is with men. So I feel that the attention shouldn't be paid on using our male privilege to the advantages of women. It should be, first of all, used to solve the man problem. And what are the man problem? I came up with the theory called the theory of gender conditioning. Gender conditioning means that, trying to assume that men will be fine, that men are naturally sensible, that boys will be naturally sensible while they grow up, right? So the second solution is for us to use the male privilege to build boys. And that is, for me, that is my forte. We need to pay attention on parenting boys appropriately, pay attention on raising boys appropriately. And finally, we also need to use our male privilege in treating women with dignity and respect. I'm hoping that the biggest part of these indices is for us to call men to action, to be able to pay attention on our boys, so that in the next 10, 15 years, we will not still gather again and start rising hashtag and stand to end rape. If we really want to end some of this culture, we need to start from the background, start from the basis, try to raise our boys appropriately the way they should be. And I'm hoping that, we will be able to do our part one way or the other in our little space. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much. Like, that talk was really, really enlightening. I'm very amazed by the work that you're doing. Thank you so much for the work that you're doing amongst the boys. It's really important. It can't be overemphasized. You know, even Love has a movement called Men Can End Violence, and they go to schools, talk to boys, and all that. So this is just really amazing to see that you're doing so much work in that sphere, because it's so important. It's so important. Men are already grown up. The boys can still be fixed. Please, thank you for coming around
with the presentation.
Solomon, we have a few questions here for you. Would you like me to ask the question and then you answer one by one, or would you like me to ask all the questions at one time?
Yeah, Favor, you can ask them at once. I'll be able to answer them together.
Okay. All right. So the first question is, there are lots of misconceptions surrounding consent. What is consent? The second question is, why is it important for us to push these narratives? And the third question is, you said that men cannot be fixed, but what do we do about the men, since they will be responsible for training and raising the next generation?
Okay. So I'll start from the first question. I mean, it's important for us to understand that consent should come in clear terms. You know, so with my very short experience around gender conversation, so we started Boy Scholars in about 2017, but before then I've written quite a lot. So I like to approach conversations from a data-driven point of view so that we don't just come up with ideas of our head. So I've realized that from my engagement with a lot of men, there seems to be an assumption about women. So for example, when we had our last project, Sabi, a guy said, if I want to get down with a lady, that you know the way they ladies do now. When they say no, it actually means that they really want it and all of that. So I believe that for consent, there must be clarity of communication, right? People must understand that no doesn't mean yes, that no is no, yes is yes, and silence doesn't mean yes. Shaking your head doesn't mean yes. You understand what I'm saying? So I feel that for consent, there should be clarity of communication, must be crystal clear, either verbally communicated or maybe through a text message or whatever. And the fact that I consented 2 minutes ago doesn't mean I'll consent now. So consent must be clear and it must be real time. You know, we're talking to some young boys and we told them that if peradventure you intend to, you know, have sexual intercourse with a lady, if she had agreed to come to your house, that's consent number one. If she decides to pull off her clothes herself, it's another consent. Before you do anything, you must ensure that there is clear communication, right? So I believe it must be clear and also it must be real time. I mean, because we've had situations where there was a particular guy that trended online recently and said the lady traveled all the way from maybe Ondo State to Warri on his birthday. Eventually, the lady came out to say she was raped and all of that. And the truth is, the lady can come out to say I was raped because at the point when you wanted to get out the lady, was there consent? You understand? And you know, men can be very manipulative emotionally. We are a very tricky gender. That's the truth. We are a very, very tricky gender. If a man wants to sleep with a woman, the man can do everything under the heaven to emotionally manipulate these women. So it's important men realize that silence is not consent. That I consented 3 seconds ago doesn't, in fact, a man can be having intercourse with a woman in the middle of the intercourse and can say, no, I'm no longer interested, right? And it is not the prerogative of the man to determine consent. I don't want to know whether you are high or on. And the moment the woman says no, it is no. So I believe we must communicate that clearly. So I think my response to the third question will connect to the second one. So not like I totally don't believe men can be fixed. My thoughts is I'm not a man advocate. I've had varying experience with men. Men are very difficult people. Right? I mean, I get a lot of backlash for this. Because I believe that even as a society, we gloss over the issue when it comes to having conversations with men. We sort of try to still massage their ego. We try to, there are a lot of irresponsible men out there. I mean, honestly speaking, I would ask you guys to read. I wrote an article on Medium like last month. The title of my article is "Men Are Actually Scum," right? In all honesty and sincerity, if you do a good X-ray, you will realize that it will take a conscious, deliberate, process-driven, and time-bound approach to be able to fix the caliber of men that we have. So I'm not saying that people who are called to the men advocacy thing, good job, I celebrate them. But I'm saying that one of the most profound solutions to this thing is to go back to the roots, so that these conversations, our kids will not have them. And even if they will do, it will be on a lesser scale. So if you now ask me, how can we begin to fix men? I think we need to begin to have vulnerable conversations, right? The reason why a lot of men in quote don't like my approach to conversation is because I'm always very real and open with this thing. At a point after we finished our project, Sabi, I called my friend. I told him, I said, do you know, in my relationship, I feel I've been emotionally manipulative. Because there are a lot of time when I'm wrong in the relationship, I try to push the blame on the lady. Because we have this ego the world has tried to massage and rub over the years. So it's difficult for me to accept that I can be wrong. It's difficult for me to accept that I'm imperfect. It's difficult for me to accept that I cannot be the Lord of a conversation. So I feel that we need to begin to have vulnerable conversation. We need to sort of maybe like open a vulnerability up, right? So one of the things I'll be doing in the coming months by God's grace is to boost to have conversations. I mean, when I mean conversations, we need to deconstruct a lot of ideologies. There are a lot of things men believe that has become a principality in their minds that we need to take to. So I'm not saying, I'm saying personally, I'm not a men advocate, I'm a bad advocate. I believe the future is bright if we can sort out the boys part of it.
Thank you so much. Thanks so much. Like that was really nice, Solomon. Thank you very much. You're as wise as the king. Thank you. So we're going for Kaede now. Kaede, we have some questions for you. Kaede, are you here? Somebody sent me a private message. He said, interestingly, the way men talk about being horny is funny because if it happens that the lady says she's HIV positive, the horniness will fly away. That's really funny. Halima has a few words that she wants to share with us. Halima, you have to.
Thank you, Faith. Well, I decided to come on because of certain things that Solomon said. I would just like to say first, Solomon, I am a very big fan of your honesty. I'm a very big fan of your confidence. I believe that we need more men like you to begin to drive these progressive conversations on healthy masculinity. We need more men to begin to be honest with fellow men. However, if you had joined in yesterday, you'd have heard us speak on how important it is for us to begin to approach the violence that men perpetrate with more understanding and patience. Because the first step to change is actually understanding what the party is going through. We cannot effect change through aggression. Pretty much. I wrote an article he wasn't sent out because the first paragraph for the article, the article was on, what's it called? The role of men in any violence. And the very first paragraph was, because it came off as an attack on men. I started with the statistics, the things that men do, and then the editor brought to my attention that the very first paragraph to put people off is going to put men off. I mean, we want them to listen, right? So we need to be able to present our messages in a way that is accepting, in a way that, we're still trying to be honest, but we still need to like tone it down a little. Now, you also mentioned something. You said men are scum. I think that this statement in itself is very problematic, because again, it puts all men in a box. It puts them, it labels them as violent. And when I mean all men, I mean every man, both the ones that are violent, both the ones that are not violent. And I think that I'm sure that a lot of men would have a problem with that. I'm sure that you got a lot of backlash, because I'm an honest person too. So I know you got a lot of backlash for that. So I think that, I know that I'm not read the article, but I know that you have a strong page for men. But in order for you to be able to invite them in, just the same way fair women, I feel like fair women is problematic. I don't believe that men are scum. I don't believe that we should try to label any gender in a negative light, even if they are perpetrating a lot of violence. Also, like I mentioned yesterday, that men are they are victims of socialization. A lot of, like you also mentioned during your presentation, a lot of men they exist in a system that encourages and promotes violence against women and girls. They exist in a system that doesn't hold them accountable for their toxic words and actions against. So that makes it very easy for them to get away with anything, or to conform, so to speak, to the systems and structures that promote violence against women and girls. So I'd just like to appeal to you. You said men are difficult people, men are irresponsible. We cannot deny the fact that there are actually some men that's in that category. But in order for us to be able to effect a sustainable change, it is important for us to, present our message in a way that is accepting, not in a judgmental way. So thank you so much for listening.
Thank you, Halima. Just to add to what you said, I saw a phrase one time that said we're all toxic. So instead of looking out to other people and dealing with how toxic everyone is and trying to feed on and fix the toxicity in everyone else, if you can focus on yourself, you can start from there, and it will create more change, because people would, like, one good turn deserves another, and it keeps going like that.